the quantities creep up on you, don't they? Just one of those panels, 30 by 30, is 900 beads, effectively close to 1,000 beads on one panel. And the numbers just really creep up on you. As soon as you take 4 of those panels, you're talking close to 4. Well, I know it's 3,600, but close to 4,000 beads, and it's just amazing numbers. Yeah, I'm just thinking. I was just thinking. I wondered how much I'd have to pay my wife to actually sort a bucket. I don't think I've got that much money. Or if I did, I don't think I'd be able to afford to buy anything else. Ah dear. A lot of people that I've seen doing it on... a lot of people. There's about 2 people I've seen doing it on doing beads on Twitch, and I've seen a few YouTube videos that people have recorded them, just recorded them doing it. It's just like you'd record a stream, and a lot of them seem to prefer to do 3 or 4 items and then iron them and fuse them. Bubbles to Monkey, I mean, do you find that, or is it, or are you doing them one piece at a time? I'm guessing if it's a big piece, then you kind of have to do it one at a time. But sorry to exclude anybody else that's on the stream. Yeah, feel free to drop in and on chat. Tell us if you do any artwork for yourself, or you are doing any of this bead work. And Holocall, sorry if I appear to be excluding. It's just a subject which interests me, but by all means join in and tell us what you might like to see on streamed on Twitch in terms of creative art. It's going to be interesting to see try the application out and see just how well it renders random pictures, because I've noticed on some of the ones that are online or free, they very carefully select the pictures that they use to illustrate the application. They unless you use something of that particular style. Wedding pictures for some reason seem to be one that they use a lot. If you take any other sort of high colour object, for example, then they come out really bad. So it's going to be interesting. And good evening, 3D Block. I'm not online. Oh dear, maybe that's why it's been quiet tonight. Twitch is playing up, but you're following me on Twitter. I noticed that. I was thinking, who on earth's this person? And then I realised it was a Twitter follower, and then I saw who it was. Actually was. So I guess you didn't have a Twitter feed up. I think Twitch really should sort out notifications. And if it's it seems to be a common complaint, doesn't it, that Twitch doesn't notify people very, very well. I don't know whether the big streamers don't have a problem with it, or whether they're so they're so scheduled, so to speak, that everybody just knows that they're going to be on anyway, and so they don't notice things like that. Anybody using Stream, by the way, check out 3D Block. He does some amazing airbrush work. Quite a lot of, at the moment, quite a lot of monochrome work, which is two of the things that attracted me to his stream. The fact he was airbrushing, which is something that I do, and therefore I was interested, and the fact that he was doing monochrome. I think you were doing the Xenomorph when the first stream I saw, and I'm really interested in monochrome as well. But he is an excellent artist. He generally streams during the week from 10 o'clock at night, but unfortunately, unless you've changed your mind free, you're not you're taking the night off tonight, I understand. If I'm wrong, please let me know, because then I can watch you as well. Yeah, I don't have notifications set up on Twitter either, and certainly not on the PC. I don't run anything like TweetDeck or anything like that. I must admit, I'm not particularly into tweeting as such. I can understand, some people that do, but I don't tend to have those short conversations with people like Twitter encourages. I just tend to read the synopsis a few days later. Okay, yeah, back on Monday. So anybody who's watching, check out 3D Block on Monday, 10 p.m. in the UK time, which would normally be about half an hour from now. So wherever you are, if you look at your clock, normally during the week, half an hour from now, 3D Block will be broadcasting airbrush, or sometimes actual real paintbrush. Sounds weird saying a real paintbrush, because an airbrush is a real brush, and even an electronic brush is a real brush. But anyway, a physical brush. Sometimes he does some quite amazing work in that as well, in his own unique style. We haven't managed to interest you in doing any beadwork, have we, 3D Block? Okay, I'm still using the London one. Maybe that's why my stream's okay at the moment, because everybody's moved over to Amsterdam. Actually, just thinking about it, I was kind of half joking about the beadwork free, but your wrap pack, that style would work quite well in beads. Because of that fairly large chunky grayscale that you use there. Yeah. It's interesting, I was supposed to be at work this afternoon, and I was at work this afternoon, but I was doing some activities that took quite a long time to do, and they were running by themselves, and whilst they were running I got nothing to do. I couldn't really use the computer for anything else, so I spent this afternoon looking at one of the suppliers, actually, Bubbles to Monkey, of those beads. It turned out to be, well, they've got an English distributor, but they were a Danish company, and I was looking through there and looking at things like the stuff that they sell, because they're a wholesaler as well, and things like glass mosaics and the square mosaic beads in quotes, in glass and plastic, and quite a few other things. I was looking at some of their wood stuff that they do, jewellery boxes, plain jewellery boxes, for example, which small ones, but they're meant to be decorated or painted or put pyrography on, things like that, and rolling pins, and I started looking at all sorts of stuff that was on there. I started looking at glass objects, for engraving into, or even some of the metal objects, and I spent this afternoon looking at art materials, thinking, oh, what can I do with that? And hey, there I could get some. Interestingly, they had a lot of canvases. I don't know what the canvases were, but in terms of quality, but things like something like 40 A4 canvases for about 30 quid type of thing. I've got a feeling they're about 120, so that's probably about 60 quid, but it struck me as they didn't look too bad in price, so they did get more expensive as they get up to your size. But I started looking at that. I'm kind of, as I was mentioning earlier, I'm kind of don't want to waste the big canvases I've got on something to practice on. So maybe I should get some of these little ones. Yeah, kid in the sweet shop, isn't it? Really, with some of them. There's some of them I look at and go, yeah. Especially sort of some of the online ones. I'm trying to think now. Who's the big, the nationwide craft store in the UK? I can't actually remember its name now. But I kind of walk in there and go, they've got the odd interesting thing, but some of the online stores, I will easily spend hours just looking at everything. Even stuff I'm not fantastically interested in, but it just sparks ideas and thinking. I was looking at wooden beads, 2 inch across wooden beads, diameter wooden beads, and thinking, I could do pyrography on a 2 inch wide wooden bead, but then it's kind of like, why? What would I do on a 2 inch wide wooden bead? And why would that be? Why shouldn't I use a flat black, for example? And it's thinking, maybe a jewellery box. You can sort of understand why you might want to do that, but a 2 inch wide bead, and think, hey, that's fun, and they're cheap, and you can get lots of them. But what would I do with it? Glass bottles, and just glass. In fact, I was looking at glass sheets. Square, they're 15 centimetres square, so that's about 6 inches square glass sheets with a stand. And I was thinking, they weren't a bad price, relatively speaking. Expensive because you can just go out and buy a big sheet of glass, but as a pre-cut ground edge glass. And I was looking, thinking, I could get some of those, and it's kind of like, why? What do I want to do with it? Okay, I apologise. Look, how does exactly as you've done it? Yes, as 3D Bloke says there, the UK unit of currency, that and the penny. So that's the lowest of the big unit of currency. In case anybody wasn't aware. Yeah. Yeah, they do, don't they? The googly eyes. Oh, there's a streamer, Marathi, who has a couple of those googly eyes on. He calls it a rathling, but it's a creature with big googly eyes on there, and that. Whenever I see him online and see his avatar, or whatever you want to call it, his profile square, always reminds me of those big googly eyes. He's got the name from licking eyeballs, but that's a different story. But the eyeballs are his Twitch I hesitate to say gimmick, but you know what I mean. It's one of the things that make him unique on Twitch. Got to be careful. I'm spending more time talking now than I am doing artwork. Yeah, I've got lots of bits and pieces. I've got a bag full of wool here. Yeah, like I must have about 3 balls of wool for carpet making. I made a rug for somebody for a present, and never having made a rug before, I went out and I knew I wanted some colours like white and brown, and not knowing how much I actually want, I bought quite a few balls of wool, so I've got a bag full of it here. I made the rug, which is a sizable rug, about 2 or 3 foot square, and I used 1 ball of wool each. And it's kind of like, I've got all this extra wool now, what do I do with it? Oh, yeah, that one strikes me as a bit indeed, yes, Holocaust, it can, I suppose. It can be fun to talk about art and talk about how to do things and stuff like that, and about the ideas and stuff. Yeah, that stream, I recall seeing that one free, and it struck me as a bit creepy. I wasn't comfortable with that image. Yeah. The other thing Holocaust though about talking about it is, of course, Twitch is a visual medium. I suppose you can get on with other things at the same time. I do that a lot during the day. I will listen to streams rather than watch them, but they still have to have an interesting video for some reason. Time to take up knitting. I can knit free. So I don't need to take it up. I have done it. I have been able to knit for 40 years now. I haven't done any for about 20 years, but I can knit. Multi-skilled, you see. I can also use a crochet hook, and what's another one? I can do embroidery. I do all sorts of stuff. Now, it's the production of the image. I mean, knitting's about clothing more than anything. I've never tried actually knitting an image. That might be an interesting thing to do, but some of the other things, like cross stitch, and which I can also do in embroidery, is about creating images. It's sort of a bit weird. Bit weird. No, that's the wrong word. But I have effectively been creative all my life, and yet people that know me don't really, or have been rather surprised that when I picked up the airbrush, which was the start of artwork, so to speak, they've been rather surprised. But when I actually sort of sit down and think about it, I've been a programmer, which is about creating. It is creative, creating programs and graphical user interfaces. I've designed circuit boards, which is about being creative. I've built radio control model, is about being creative. And when you add all these sorts of things together, I have been creative all my life. It's just not recognised as what would be an artist, Well, Free would have to answer that one, Bubbles. I don't actually know, to be honest. You probably didn't forget it, Free. There is kind of only 2 stitches. Everything else is just variations on it, really. A knit stitch and a purl stitch, which is a backwards knit stitch. So everything else is just all variations on it. And my mum taught me how to do straight knitting, because she knitted a lot, but everything else from there I've just taught myself really, and just tried things. So some of the cabling, which is a way of moving the stitches around so it looks like a rope on a knitted garment, is really just knitting things in a different order. Which sort of programming languages, Holocol? Quite a few. The first programming language I learned was on a Commodore PET, which is BASIC, and from there I built my own computer. This is a long time ago, you might imagine, so I learnt 6502 microprocessor machine language, or hex machine language. I never actually got down to the binary, but it's fairly easy to convert between hex and binary, so I was able to actually remember in machine language programming you use mnemonics, CLR, clear register, add a value to a register. Lazy Cactus, thank you very much for the follow, that's most appreciated. And you get, until the next person follows, you get your name on the bottom of the screen there, or until the end of the stream, whichever comes first. So you had these mnemonics, and I did it so much that I actually knew the translation between the mnemonics and the hex code. So I actually wrote in hex code, which proved useful when I was at university, because we did 6802 machine language at university, and the two are very almost identical, that you can use them the same, and I could actually write my homework at university. I didn't write down the questions that we were being given to do for homework, I wrote down the answers, which was quite amusing. But from there I've done all sorts of things. I've done C++, I've played about with C#, I've done a little bit of Fortran. Generally speaking, I can read the languages and understand them, and most of them have almost similar syntax really, so I can take a program and potentially I can sort of debug them in all sorts of languages. Generally work a lot in Visual Basic these days, just because of the environment at work. It's easier to do that. I'd much prefer to work in something like Java or C#. They'd make a lot of what I do these days, because I do a lot of object orientated work, and most of the time I'm forced to use Visual Basic for applications whose object orientation is and whose inheritance is terrible, or rather there's no such thing as inheritance. They do interfaces. Sorry, I'm talking technical to those other people that don't understand programming. So a fair range of stuff really. Used to be fascinated. A long time ago I did some COBOL 88, I think it was, or 80, can't remember now, and on quite a few different systems as well. Microprocessors, I do embedded stuff these days sometimes as well. Typically these days it's Arduino with the what's Arduino? It's one of the C variants, I can't remember. Everybody of course just calls it Arduino, but I do some low level stuff often in the other manufacturers' names. You know what, I have real problems sometimes trying to remember names, so kind of get a mix of stuff. Visual Basic is awful. It is and it isn't. It's a very easy language for people who are not really familiar with programming concepts to get into, and to to do something fairly useful with it, and being that it's the visual concept and it's based on the message processing of the underlying Windows architecture, they learn encapsulation, and they sort of learn a little bit about object orientation without actually ramming it down your throat, because a button's an object, or it's encapsulated, however you wish to describe it, and so you push it and that fires off a process, which can happen at any time, so you learn that concurrency stuff. So I think it's a very useful thing, but stuff like its true object orientation and inheritance of interfaces and things like that is terrible, I agree. Visual Basic itself is better than Visual Basic for applications. C# I've only just started really playing with, but I'm reasonably familiar with Java, so it's a similar concepts again. And I love the extensibility of things like C# and the object extensibility. The only problem I have is deciding what's an object. But and I love microcontrollers. I find it fascinating. I can take something, I've got one in front of me here. Take something like that, which is a microprocessor, and the amount of stuff you can get that to do, turn on lights, control heating, or pretend to be a keyboard, is amazing. In fact, I've got a project in front of me. I'll just pull this one out. Here we go. We've gone from art now to a different form of creativity. There's another different microprocessor. This one is an Arduino. So this is a keypad and a joystick. So I've actually just made myself my own. This is actually a controller, and so the Arduino is acting like a controller. I've just built my own Xbox controller, if you like, but this one will light up. It's a bidirectional feed, so if I push a button it will light up. This joystick doesn't act like a joystick, it acts like a key press. If I play some games a lot, the WASD controls, I actually make my fingers sore, so I changed it so I can use a joystick. So W, was it W, D, A and S and it works like that. And I've got another one around somewhere that works with Euro Truck Simulator, because I can never remember which keys are which, so I've got some buttons which sort of say light, and I press the button and the lights come on, which makes things amazing. But that's something I call physical computing. You do something in the real world and the computer reacts to it, and I find that absolutely fascinating to play with. Yeah, I don't know COBOL these days, and web design and JavaScript. Yeah, JavaScript's another one. Lingo I've never played with. I've been doing a lot of work with Microsoft SharePoint, which is XML, XSL, JavaScript comes into it, some Visual Basic like scripting, Basic like scripting as well, and you get it's interesting. You want to put something on screen, and you end up having to know about, in SharePoint at least, you end up needing to know about 6 different languages, because CSS comes into it as well. And so there's XML, XSL, there's God, if I was at work I could reel these off, but there's various forms of conversion that go on within the XSL and what have you, and the libraries that you can call on, and then of course JavaScript and CSS, and people go, oh, SharePoint's easy, and it is if you just want to create a list.